This is the Crossing Bridges podcast, addressing the topics of leadership, criminal justice, and fatherhood. How can we become better leaders? Where are all the daddies? Why is crime at an all-time high? Here is your host, Bayonle Arashi.
This is the Crossing Bridges podcast, episode 25 of the podcast. My name is Bayonle Arashi. There's something special about this particular episode of the podcast. It was supposed to be the 22nd episode, but due to some technical difficulties, we just could not manage to air that particular episode. But my guest was so passionate and so understanding that he said we have to do this again. And I bet you don't want to miss this episode. My name again is Bayonle Arashi. It's the 25th episode of the podcast Crossing Bridges podcast, talking about criminal justice system in the United States, fatherhood, and more importantly, the issue of leadership, the lack of leadership that we have in our community, in our society, and country at large, and how we can make it better and how we can contribute our little quarter to making it a better world. My guest, welcome to the podcast. Can you please introduce yourself?
Thank you so much for having me. My name is Gregorio. I live in Mexico. I'm from the United States. My English name is Craig. I don't like my English name. I am 49 or 50 years old. I actually don't know anymore. It's a funny, or not funny, haha story, but funny that's really screwed up story. And I'm alive, and I'm living in the moment because I don't have any other option other than the one I choose, which is to be okay in this moment. And that's my story in a nutshell. I'm an author. I'm a punk rocker. I do what I think is right, and I have paid the consequences for that many times. And my eyes continue to open up each morning, and so I just get up and do my day. And that's who I am, I guess. That's what's going on.
Absolutely, Gregorio. I really appreciate you. I know you prefer I call you Gregorio, even though you say your English name is Craig. And a lot of people will not understand this, but Gregorio has a very powerful story, a very interesting story. And I will want him to share by himself because, like I said, on the last episode that he was supposed to feature, it was a no holds bar because that's what this podcast is all about. But sadly, we could not air that particular episode. But you had him there despite all the odds, despite all the challenges he has faced. This man right here is an author of not one, not two, but multiple books that is teaching people on how to find self-healing. How many people does that? And he also said something which a lot of people don't want to admit. The capacity for you to be vulnerable, the capacity for you to know that I always want to do the right thing and I don't know everything is not what a lot of people practice. So, Gregorio, can you tell us a little bit about your growing up, your father, your mom, the kind of home you grew up in? Please tell us your story.
Thank you. I love it when I'm understood as somebody who can be expected to speak in a no hold barred way. Because anyone who does not want to hear what I have to say does not have to. And they've made that very clear to me, which is why I live here in Mexico now. The point of telling my story is to shut people up from my past, to keep away people in my present who are not good people, as far as how I define that, a person being good or not, and to allow my future to be even better than my today because I'm surrounding myself by people who actually are real and don't need to BS anybody about anything. So, yeah, I grew up in a very abusive, disgusting home, uh, a wealthy Jewish family from the suburbs of Boston, Massachusetts. My parents were extremely dysfunctional and sick. I smile because that's the word they identified me as, being sick, because I had the audacity to tell the truth about what things were like at home behind closed doors. And with all their nice clothes and rings and all sorts of beautiful things and public persona is members of the community of great standing, uh, they just simply could not maintain their facade behind closed doors. And when you put a little child in a situation like that, especially someone like me, then you're going to have a big problem when you try to shut that kid up. And so they had to go to great lengths to shut this kid up. And they succeeded. They succeeded for approximately 28 years. Because in 1988, after years and years of attempting to find a mental health professional that would agree with their delusions that I was a sick child, they found someone who finally would not uh, tell them the truth, or maybe my parents figured out how to be so manipulative of a mental health professional that they finally got the rug pulled out from under me. But I was ultimately put inside a psychiatric hospital for conditions I never had, for symptoms that I never had one time in my entire life, still do not have them now. And I was diagnosed with schizophrenia and heavily drugged for 28 years. And throughout my journey, I had to fight for everything without knowing that the entire time I was being intentionally subjugated, knowingly disabled, and psychologically harmed. Not to mention all the other things that come along with being sick all the time. Ultimately, in my journey, or as part of my journey of fighting my way up out of the pit that I was always stuck in, put in by others, let's not beat around the bush and use words like misdiagnosis. That's a delusional thing for anyone to say. So let's not go to that delusional place, because there ain't no misdiagnosis. It's called intentionally fraudulent diagnosis. You can look in my eyes right now and see I ain't playing. So that's what it's called. So after 28 years of this intentionally fraudulent diagnosis, of living the life of a sick person, taking the pills, 80,000 or so approximately, I was able to prove that I was not what they said I was. During this time period of my career of being a psychiatric patient, came to an end in the mid 2010s, I guess we'll call it. I also was working as a mental health provider, and I was able to actually, like, achieve some really cool things. I was able to work and keep a job for 5 years, which is something that was impossible for me to ever do. And working as a mental health worker, I published at that point two books about mental health recovery. One was an anthology storybook. The other was a workbook, and those books have sold almost 10,000 copies, just those two books alone, since they were published. And I was also able to become a keynote speaker at a national United States mental health conference, and even travel to other countries and do something similar. And that's all stuff I did while I was trying to get myself healthy from 28 years of being abused via a intentionally fraudulent and false psychiatric diagnosis. By the time it was 2015, I was almost at the end of tapering off all the pills they had given me, because I began a process of tapering off the drugs thanks to obtaining my mental health records from when I was a child from my then employer, the Massachusetts Department of Mental Health, who is very aware that I'm saying all this stuff. So, hi. And yeah, I was able to prove in their own clinicians' handwriting, right, that I was a victim. It just so happened during that time period I was also working for the Massachusetts Department of Mental Health. And so some other really unfortunate things happened, and I was correct. I'm just going to call a spade. 100% correct. And they got me. I was eliminated from my career for telling the truth about some things. And my past history, which was seriously beyond the pale criminal, was also erased at the same time because I was just taken out. No more pills, no more psychiatric diagnosis, no more job, no more community, ultimately, no more friends, no more house, no more everything. Just me, my body, and my brain, and a small backpack, and a one-way ticket to Europe. And that was 2018, January, and here we are, July 5th, 2023, here in Mexico. Thank you for allowing me to share my story in the way that I just did.
What a powerful story, Gregorio. What a powerful story. There's so much that you said that I really I'm trying to conform my next question from. One of them, because I remember my question was, tell us your story, and I'm so happy that you shared so much in less than 5 minutes. But how, first and foremost, what do you think inspire your parents to, in the first place, put you in that kind of situation? That's my first question, and I'm probably going to make it two in one. And how were you able to start being aware of what was going on with you, like you said, after 28 years, and you start finding your way out of it? I have more questions to ask. And the third one, which is going to be third in one, is did you also have a sibling? Do you have a sister? Do you have brothers? Do you have any other member of your family apart from you, from your parents?
Okay, you might have to refresh me on the questions as we go, but the answer to question one, I would say the Holocaust. I would say the mass extermination of people from our bloodline really impacted my parents' behavior. But I would also say that before the Holocaust, the at least the Jewish family that I come from was always negative and was always playing the victim and always the victim of everybody and everyone. So they were already predispositioned to blaming everybody for their problems. It just so happened that they blamed me because clearly I was a cycle breaker who wanted nothing to do with their psychosis. So that's the answer to question number one. And now you're going to have to refresh me on question number two.
Now, the question number two was, I mean, you already answered it that the parent was your Holocaust was probably the issue. I said after 28 years, how were you able to start um, being aware of what happened to you, and you start taking yourself out, because you said you were diagnosed by schizophrenia as a child, and you were taking medication, and only when you were 28 years old when it was when you start being aware and start taking yourself out of the entire issue.
I wasn't 28. It was after 28 years.
Wow. After
Yeah.
28 years. So how old were you when you start finding out?
In 2013, I obtained my mental health records from my former employer, or that employer, the Department of Mental Health. And in those records, it said that when I was a teenager, as a ward of the Department of Mental Health, I was given a diagnosis that they knew was false of schizophrenia and that they knew I was being abused. So when I obtained my mental health documents from my then employer in 2013, you can appreciate how rapidly the system was not going to find good favor with me when I could prove that I was an abuse victim and that they were liable. And so the moment I found out that I was a child victim in writing, I made a phone call to my former therapist from when I was a child, and he invited me to come to his office to meet with him. This was 2013. Yeah. And I went to see him, and he told me the truth about my family. And the way I can back this up as saying this is rock solid is because this therapist ended up marrying my mother's former best friend long after I had any communication or contact with this therapist or that family. And so I went to his office, and he told me to my face that my parents were sick, and that my parents were looking for a therapist or a psychiatrist to agree with them that I was a sick child in need of care, and that he told my parents that they needed mental health care, and that I was an innocent child reacting to their terrible behavior. And so after this appointment, he came out to the car, and he said, "Hey, do you remember this woman from back when you were a kid?" I said, "Yeah." She said, "Well, I married her several years ago, and she works here now as a therapist down the hall. Do you want to come? Do you want her to come to the car and say hi?" So I said, "Yes." And she came to the car, and I said, "Did my mother abuse me? Was this all fake?" And she said, "Yeah." And she told me later on the phone how she tried to help me, and other people tried to help me as well. But my parents had money and power, and they manipulated everybody, including the state. And so, yeah, I found everything out, and I opened up my mouth, and I've never stopped because I was empowered to do so. But I also have lost nearly everything in the entire world that I had, and then I lost everything else again from telling the truth. And I was given ultimatums by my family to stop talking, or else. So, or else happened. We haven't communicated in 5 or 6 years. None of them, not even anyone I share blood with at all. But what made me get through all this, what made me get to today, and which is like every day is a journey and a battle, is what made me do it is because how was I going to let anybody get away with destroying me when I knew I was the child of the universe, when I knew that all these things must have happened to me for a reason, realizing that there weren't people there to help me, that everyone was just going to turn their back at my most vulnerable moments of my entire existence. I decided I had to not stop. And so I didn't stop. I still haven't stopped. And I continue to go. And I'm worth it. And anyone who doesn't think that, or anyone who did anything to hurt me, I'm not going to swear right now, but I think you can just have the thoughts in your head what I think I'd like to say to them. And I do, and I have. And that's okay. Life goes on. And as long as my heart continues to beat, and sometimes I think it won't, I'm here. Hopefully I'll wake up again tomorrow and do it again.
Absolutely, absolutely. I have to personally say that I'm very proud of what you've done with yourself, and that's where we're going to shift to now. We're going to leave the sorrowful part of our story because, hey, I'm on girls that uh, want to become a great person in life, wants to become a leader in any sector, wants to become an impact builder or influence on other people that will not have to go through fire, that will not have a very interesting stories to share. And yours definitely is one of those once in a lifetime stories. So I'm going to shift now to how you were able to use all these what could have been a tragedy, what could have been a way for you to say, okay, I would rather spend the rest of my life in the criminal justice system, for you to channel it positively and start writing books. What inspired that? How did you come to that? How did you find that inspiration? How did you find such power to position you where you are right now?
I I conjured all of this up from deep within me without knowing it was there. Nothing I've done was intentional. Strategic is a completely different, like, I guess, idea. Strategy, yes, but did I know what I was doing? Absolutely not. My books that saved my life and continue to save my life were not, well, the very first book, the Better Days Mental Health Recovery Workbook, was never intended to be sold. It was a internship turned volunteer peer support group project that I did for years to help people and to help myself. That was it. There was no intention to turn it into a business or to turn it into a become an author. I mean, I can hardly read. Like, sorry, I'm a successful author, but I can hardly read. It's been hard for me. Um, so I became an author, I guess, because I knew how to do things and I was able to publish books. That's probably not a good, convincing answer for somebody who's like, how am I going to get into becoming an author and having a successful publishing business? I don't know. I don't know. But do something. Keep writing, and I don't know. But how did I do all this? Uh, on an empty tank of gas, on an empty bank account, on a broken heart, on a brain that was damaged and kept me from making rational decisions, with numerous health issues that never got addressed, and now I'm paying the price for them and trying to get them done now, handled now. How did I do all this? Because I had to. Because I'm not going to allow anybody to take my life from me like they once did. If I'm going to take my life, it's going to be me. No problem. But that's not my plan. So I'm going to keep going. I did all of this because I had to. I had to. I had to do all this so I'd have a place to live. So I'd have food. So I'd have the chance of a human connection. Uh, I adopted a cat. She's on the couch right here. She's sleeping. I picked her up on the street. I live here in Mexico now for 4 years. I found her on the street. I put her over my shoulder. I carried her home, and now she's with me every day. It's amazing. I mean, I have some friends. I know all the children in my neighborhood. All the old ladies, all the old men, the kids, the families, the artisans, the musicians. I mean, I live in a place where people treat me like I matter. I guess they can tell I'm a good person. Um, I'll give myself the I I give myself the opportunity to have a second life because I saw that the opportunity to have a second life was possible. But there ain't no book or therapist or guide that teaches you how. Well, excuse me, let me rephrase that. I wrote the guide of how to survive the impossible. So there is. Just like you asked me a moment ago, how did I do all this? How did I become a writer? Out of necessity. And all the stuff I told you, which is just like a snapshot of a snapshot. You can multiply that story by 1,000 and then have 1,000 relatively equally screwed up, horrible stories that are part of my past. But how did I become an author? Why do I do all that I do? What made me go through all this stuff? What forced me? Why? And then why does this book exist? The Guide to Surviving the Impossible? I guess that's why. So I could write a book called the Craig Lewis, which is my name in English, Guide to Survive the Impossible. So if because I know that other people get this book and it benefits them, and they tell me, like, people I don't even know write me messages about it, overwhelmingly like powerful things. I know I did something good. So I guess that's why I did everything I did. And then tomorrow I'll do the same thing and I'll be nice to the kids in the street and maybe I'll help an old lady pick something up or I'll like smile at somebody. I'll pat a cat. I'll feed a street cat and it makes me happy. Maybe a friend will call me. Maybe someone will give me a hug. You know, that's why.
Wow,
Because I
Gregorio,
deserve something.
I am so impressed with your story. I am so impressed. And since you already mentioned your book, because that was going to be my next question as we wind down on this particular episode of the podcast, which I'm really hopeful will reach the right audience, the people that need to watch and listen and read your story will really understand where you're coming from and as I could feel and can feel your pain and can feel how much you still have in you that you want to share with the world. I hope they can also see that. But before I ask you the questions I always ask my guests every week on the show, where can the people find you in case they want to find you, they want to buy your book, they want to call you for speaking engagement, they want you to come and share your story real time. How best can they find you?
You can find me at my website, sanityisafultimejob.org. Sanity is a full-time job.org.
Sanity is a
And you should go to my
full-time job
website,
dot
and it's
org,
currently
because I think
under
we're having
construction.
issue with your network again. I have to put it out there. But the website is sanity is a full-time job.org. Quickly, Gregorio, this is going to be a quick fire question, right? So that before we lose the network totally, because I know you are in a far distance, and it's part of the sacrifice that you have made to really make this episode of the podcast possible. My first question for you will be: do you think leaders are born or they are made?
Made.
Hmm,
Made.
made. Okay. Gregorio thinks leaders are made. The next question will be: what do you think makes a good man?
You have to be honest when you make mistakes. You have to love purely with your heart. You have to love others without condition. You have to forgive others when they make mistakes. You have to do the right thing whenever possible and always try your best to be a good person to others. Be selfless, be forgiving, and be willing to give your life for what you believe in, including if that means for another person to have a chance. Yeah.
That's a very good response, my friend. That's a very good response.
I'm not
My,
afraid to die at all. I'm happy to
I
live a
truly
life of beauty.
appreciate that. I truly appreciate it. The last one before I let you go is what is your biggest leadership lesson? The biggest leadership lesson you have learned in your life that you want to share in less than 1 minute as we round off on the podcast today.
Okay. I'm going to let you know that we don't want to end on this question. So I remember last, for a reason, I'm going to give you an answer, but I remember last time you asked me for a quote. So let's just make sure before we say goodbye, I give you the quote because I have it here in front of me. All right.
Absolutely.
All
Absolutely.
right. What's the biggest lesson I learned from leadership?
Yes, sir.
That I want them all to be removed, and if I can do something about it, then remember my name, Gregorio Craig Lewis, because I don't believe in people who uh, gang up on the little guy to achieve some sort of false ideal of helping make the world a better place. I believe in the little guy
Hmm.
collectivizing the power of the people, working together so we all rise up and benefit. Here's my quote. It's Albert Camus quote. And this is why I just said what I said, because this is what I know. No offense, full respect to all the good people out there. I've had a hard time finding you. Maybe I'll find more of you soon. But according to Albert Camus, don't walk behind me. I may not lead. Don't walk in front of me. I may not follow. Just walk beside me and be my friend. And the reason why is because I'm a poor kid from the street who just so happens to be white and male from the United States. That's an illusion. Privilege takes on many, many forms. And I don't know about the kind of privilege that a lot of the people who might look like me and talk like me have. I still have it, but no. Walk beside me and be my friend. And that's how we create the change that we all deserve. From my heart, thank you for your time and respect.
Thank you so much, Gregorio. Don't walk behind me. Don't walk in front of me. Walk beside me and be my friend. This is how we're going to end this episode of the podcast. I want to say a very special thank you to my friend Gregorio coming for the second time on the podcast. And I'm really, really hopeful to share this podcast episode with everyone and for a lot of people to be able to see it. Till I see you guys again next time, God willing. My name is Bayonle Arashi. It's been my pleasure bringing the podcast episode your way. And I'll see you guys next time, God willing. Have a good one. Bye bye now.
Thank you for listening to the Crossing Bridges podcast with Bayonle Arashi. Your comments, suggestions, and ideas are welcomed. Follow Bayonle on all social media platforms at Bayonle Arashi or visit www.bayonlearashi.com for coaching and speaking engagements. See you next time.